Yay, you did it! You wrote your book and it's time to launch. You handed in your manuscript and it's just fantastic. Let me just be real. You just did a great job. Congratulations. But your work is really far from over. So when you submit your book, it goes to your editor and you've gone through some edits, and then there's like between 6 months and a year before the book actually makes it to stands. And well, this could be a weird time for a writer because in some ways oftentimes contracts won't let you pitch another book in that meantime, and you sort of have this weird downtime. For me, I just sort of hang out at my office. I'm like, what am I doing? Maybe go on some hikes, take up some bad habits, whatever. But there's a big thing that's coming, which is when it comes out to the market. That's when that's your debut for your great idea, and your publisher is going to tell you that they have this kick ass marketing team. Like, these guys are sharks. Like, they're in there and they're gonna go pitch the New York Times, and they're gonna get you that NPR interview, and they're gonna do all these things. They're gonna send out copies to influencers and blah 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 blah. They are lying. They will do none of those things, or they will attempt to do it. But a publisher has usually about 20 books coming out every quarter, depending on the publisher. And there's usually one or two people in charge of the PR for all of those titles and the next titles. And they're only going to invest in the projects that they really care about. Also, there's a good chance that your editor got fired and moved to a different publication. That's happened to me like for every book I've ever written. The marketing team who was really jazzed about it initially is now no longer there. People are on vacation. Like, you are not their top priority. So for your book to be successful, you have to take responsibility for the launch of that book. It's all, a lot of it happens on launch day, where you have to be in advance for those long lead titles. Remember how we talked how magazines can take 6 months to get to stand? Well, you need to have your book accepted in the magazine, like Wired or New York or whatever, 3 months in advance at least to get into print, because that's the way the print cycle works. You have more time in radio. Blogs can be done in like a day. Podcasts are great because people are really listening to stuff now. But you have to take responsibility for that. I have done all the mistakes out there. I've gone out and the publisher said they had a great marketing team. And actually, they had an okay one, and my first book did okay. The second time I put a book out, they said they had this great marketing team. They were sharks. They were going to do it. And then they just sort of just didn't really care, and they had other things going on, and some got fired, and my book just got forgotten. And the third time, I had this book out, and I was like, okay, I'm raring, I'm ready to go, and they told me that they were ready to go. I even hired this external PR person for like 10 grand to, run the pitches, because I was like, I just don't want to deal with it anymore. I just want someone else to tell me I'm great, or whatever I was thinking. It turns out that those people cannot be as enthusiastic about your product, as your writing, as you can be. You're the only person who can get people excited about what it is that you're doing. So what I suggest is assume that your publisher is not going to do their job, and be pleasantly surprised if they are. Get a list of media people to go out to, and be sure that it arranges for your launch date. You want all of that media to drop within that first week to create this initial excitement that then will hopefully lead to kindling, that makes other people tell each other that they read this great book, and on and on and on. That's how things move. But you really do need to generate that initial interest to get there. And so, I have a list that I sometimes will share with people that's about 300 names of journalists at all the top organizations. But you can also get these yourself. You can go do your own research. You can go look through magazines and get the mastheads and put together a group of very good people, and be sure that they have the sort of galleys, they call them, these sort of like unfinished books in their hands and have read them and they're excited about them. It helps to create a book trailer. That is a video that is short and edgy. I had one for What Doesn't Kill Us. You can take a look at it. It's on YouTube and things. And it hits that dopamine hit that makes an editor be like, oh, well, maybe I do want to cover this book because, honestly, you don't want to read all the pitches and you want to put in every bit of effort you can into that marketing campaign to make it a big thing. Now, when the book launches and it does well, it's very unlikely that the book immediately becomes a New York Times bestseller. In fact, it probably won't. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have incentive to keep pushing it. Now, this is why I told you earlier about keeping audiobook rights for your work, is that when my last book came out, because I retained audiobook rights, I was motivated to keep pushing and promoting my work out into the mainstream public. Now, the previous books, what happens is they dropped, and you realize that to earn out your advance and to get your next check after they've paid you your advance money, it has to sell something like 40, 50,000 copies, and you've only sold like 2,000 in your first week. There's no incentive for you to actually put in a real effort into promoting your work anymore, because you realize that you'll never get to that payday out in the future. And why are you working for the publisher if you're not going to be making money? So this is why it's critical to have some sort of revenue stream that comes in, so that every time you do a media interview, you can go back and be like, hey, look, I made some sales. Now, for me, the audiobook was totally transformative. It has made it possible for me to go do a podcast and then say, oh, look, I did a podcast and I sold like 200 books and that put like $1,000 in my pocket. That's incentive. That's like, oh my God, I'm going to go do there. And that also reflects on your print copies, that even though you'll never earn out, the publisher is super happy because they are making a lot of money. And it really, really goes hand in hand to have an incentive and a reason to keep on pushing as you go forward. Otherwise, what happens is you write a book and then it goes out. You realize you can't earn out. And then you say, okay, well, the only thing I can do is write another book. And you sort of like fall into that pattern that I talked about earlier between the long line fisher person and the net person, because you don't have money. You're sort of going to be chasing the next assignment versus looking back at the stuff that you did that has created value and generates and pushes you forward. And it's totally possible to have passive income from this. Now, if you sold your audiobook rights and you can't get them back, you should try to buy them back. But if you can't buy them back, you should look at selling foreign rights in Czech Republic. And every book I've ever published has come out in Polish. I don't know why. France, Russia, wherever. Every time you do that, you get like $2,000 or $3,000 more, and that is also incentive for you to keep working. Other things you can look at are like speaking engagements or merchandising. Maybe there's a way to sell T-shirts with your book on it, or action figures, or whatever. You look around to find ways to incentivize you to go out there and push. And by incentivize, I mean make money and have that cash coming in. And if you can set things up so that every time you go out, it gives you a reason to go out again, you're gonna build that following of people who are interested in you and carry it forward. So that's what I'm saying. To sum up on this video, it's up to you to market your work. Your success or failure depends on you, and having incentives to keep on pushing as you go forward. Think about all these things as you in that contract negotiating stage early on, so that when you get to this point, you can breathe a little easier. You don't have to keep on reinventing yourself.